This is just going to be a quick video on using the 9 heads method to draw a figure drawing. In the beginning, so that you can get even marks, we're going to take a ruler and we are simply going to start at 1 and kind of center the ruler on your page. So, or sorry, we'll make a mark at 0, and then 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. So now we have marks here, and I'm just going to come across and make a really light line. And you'll want to follow along and just do this with me because it will help you build out your drawings. So here we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. I like to keep these on hand as we work, and I will try to move the paper down as we get down towards 9. But we have them all here. I just have a small space to work with. We can get up all that way. You can see it a little better. Okay. 1 is the spot of our head. And what we will do to start with is we are going to make a mark about halfway on in between our 0 point and our 1. And we're going to start with a circle that fills that space. From this space, we are going to, about at the 3/4 point, drop down a straight line on both sides. And then we are going to angle in this forms our head. We have the dome top, and we can divide this up even further to find our facial landmarks. For example, if we go about right here, just under this mark, this is where our nose, the bottom of our nose is, and we can put in a little mark here and here for the bridge of the nose. Right here, about halfway through our entire shape, is where we have our eyes, and our eyes only come out to about where that circle is tapering. So like that. And then our mouth comes in right here. We have our brow above our eye. We can give just a little round shape for the eye. So that is the simplest face. Directly out from our eyes come our ears. That gets our simplest head. To start with, you can just work on getting the basic head shape and then come in and do the face later. But you'll want to understand the basic proportions of both of these. So right in here is the triangle for our nose, roughly. All right. Right through here, along the bottom of 2, is where our the bottom of our bust line will come in. So we're going to start to get there via coming in about halfway, not quite half, right about there, just a hair above half, and coming in from about the center of the eye and dropping down is about the width of our neck. The bottom of our neck curves, so we need to add a curve in there. And then our shoulders sit approximately half a head width. So if we drew in another circle that is the same size right here, or I'm sorry, I didn't mean half, I meant a whole head width. So right here is the basics of where our neck and collarbone sits. And if we add in another head right through here and right through here, that gets us about out to our shoulder. So we're going to slope through that and put 2 circles representing the fullness of our shoulders. So the circle of the shoulders is just about a head width, a little bit more out from your neck. So if this is a whole head width and I take this and I run a dotted line like that down, and then a dotted line like this, we have 1 head width. This mark here and this mark here is about another set of head widths. So we could fit a whole nother head drawing in here and here. So when I say head width, I mean this increment right here. This is 1 head width. From here to here, this is another head width. And then that drops through the center of the shoulder. So look at where this falls on the shoulder point. This is about probably just a hair over a third way down, our number 2. If we're drawing a female figure, we are going to find the line for the chest and for the breast. So where that is going to fall is we are going to come here in the center and about the size of our head, we can sketch in 2 forms. I need to bring this one in a little bit. 2 forms here for our chest and our bust point. So the bottom of the bust is hitting just right about it too. Our belly button is going to hit here at the bottom of 3. In order to get a nice shape though, we want to actually be coming in towards that belly button with our chest. And we also want to describe the bottom of the rib cage. How I like to do that is just put a circle, or I guess a half circle, half curve, right there where the bottom of it comes to the halfway point. And this comes to about 1/4 on that 3. From here, I drop down to the from the center of the shoulder point to about there, the bottom of the 2, and then I curve inward, or not curve, but slant. And this is the rough shape. I do tend to come back in and curve out this arm socket just a little bit. Now here, across the bust, we have a curvature that comes across, and we can curve lines on our spheres to make them appear extra curvy, and sketch in just kind of where the bottom of the breast sits. You can bring it up too and wing it out towards the arm. And you want to try to get as symmetrical as possible. So if that requires coming in and doing some erasing and going back and forth to get that looking good, then that's what you need to do. At the bottom of 4 is where the bottom of our pelvic and our pubic bone sits. And our hips sit approximately straight down under our shoulders. So what I'm going to do is make a mark here for the bottom of my pubic bone, and I am going to try to draw a circle that comes from here to here, the outside of my shoulder. So I'm going to come up like this and down here to try to draw a circle. I'm going to repeat that same thing on the other side. Now I have the approximate largest point of my hip sitting here. And I'm going to come in just under these full bust points, so where I have my X crossing across the breast. And I'm going to draw a curved line that comes out from those and in. Then I am going to draw another curved line right there to get my hip. Now we do have to bring these forms together. Right in here sits our stomach. The stomach comes down right along here. And I like to put a line there, kind of indicate, okay, that's where my stomach falls. And then curve, just make a nice smooth curve here for my waist. This is simplifying the torso and the hip a lot, and that's okay to start with until you get the basic proportions down. Now we are going to draw the legs, and I like to make sure that I have a curve sitting here. Now my thighs are going to come in and most thighs end up touching. So you could draw a line down the center here, and we want both of our thighs to eventually touch here. I'm going to go ahead and mark in where my knees are going to fall, as well as my ankles. So my knees here are going to come back in, because on a female figure, because the hips are wide, we need to bring in a line coming back in towards this center, so like right under the ear. And that's where our knee is going to be, at the bottom of 6. So we can put in that line. Then we can mostly follow this line to our ankle at 8, and then our foot takes up the 9. So I'm going to go ahead and sketch in these legs. We'll come back and do the arms. For the legs, I like to start on the outside, and I'm angling things in, but I'm also curving this line. So this line doesn't go straight, it curves out just a bit. Like that. Now I need to draw the lower leg, and one thing is that we have calf muscles that come out further, and so while this is the center, we need to bring it out a little further, and you want your widest point to be about 1/3 of the way down. And so we're going to curve out to that 1/3 point, and I like to even put that little bit of a curved mark there. That way I make sure I go out far enough. And then we will go back in. This is the knee, and the knee needs to have a bit of shape to it. So I like to make sure that I have that circle in there. That helps me know that I need to keep that width. And because our hips are going to touch, or our thighs are going to touch up here, and then we'll bring that back out, come back in, back out, back in. really simplified the shapes here. But now we're going from a boxy base to a cone and cylinder base. So if you came and divided these up, you know, these are cones with the top lobbed off that sit into a circle. And then we have another cone coming out here, and then cones sitting on the same end coming in towards our ankle. Gonna do a similar thing up with the arms. So the arm, I am just going to kind of just stretch out this way so that we can see it. The elbow comes about here at the smallest point of our waist. So I'm going to go ahead and put my elbows there. These can, you know, change however you have your arms positioned. And then our wrist comes about at the widest point of our hip, there. So if we draw those lines connecting, okay. Now these are going to be another set of cylinders. So we are going to bring our lines connecting, and once again I curve this out a little bit. If I drew a straight line, it would be like this, but I'm going to curve it out because it's a little full. And then from this point under the arm, I am also going to curve it out. Here is where that crease in your elbow is, and then once again I want to find, a little bit early, about 1/3 of the way, and we will taper out and then back in towards the wrist. So right here, remember, curve. Here we are also going to curve, and then find 1/3 of the way, make that little smiley mark, curve out, and then in towards the wrist. That gets us our arm shape. And now I want to come in and smooth out how these shoulders fit in. So I am going to just come from the top here and smooth out that line. All right. We really kept it simplified. I personally like to shave off just a little bit of the width of the hip here. So it's not so wide. Because we don't want it really wider than the shoulders. But our basic shape is still here. All right. Now we're going to do the feet. The feet I like to keep really simple. I drop down a line for the heel, go over a bit, and then if we're in a high heel, our foot will arch down and then come back out like that. That's almost like a Barbie high heel. If we are not in a high heel, then I tend to pivot the foot just a bit so it's coming along this way, and I will put a line here and sketch out just a basic toe box, and then I will bring that out like this. Otherwise, I sketch in my toe like that, and we have a heel. For a hand, I saw your sketches of hands and they look pretty good, but we are going to just create that kind of piece of a pie wedge shape and another smaller web shape right next to it that stops just a little bit before. And then I just draw all of the fingers as one unit to start with, which is as if I was almost had like shovel hands, where I have this part and then I have the fingers curling even more, and then the thumb just sits there. You can get to that spot and then we can work on gestures and fingers. So this is some basic proportions to start following, and just remembering to keep all of these limbs curved in a cylinder form.